Hi, it's Hope and welcome to the video. I apologize for any noise that you hear. There are fans on in my room, and I apologize for my parents because my room is super hot because a fan just broke. So yeah, but this is going to be the books that I DNF'd. I debated doing this video because I'm not going to negatively share anything about these books at all. If you're looking for negative thoughts on these books, get out. These are just going to the books that I DNF'd, what they're about, why I DNF'd them, and if I plan on picking them up again sometime in the future. So we're going to go from like my first DNF to my most recent. So in March 2020, I DNF'd The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, and this is kind of a circus-ish book where there's this circus that pops up at night, and there's these two people who essentially compete at the circus, but I didn't actually get to that part. I got, I think, about 25% into the book, and I just wasn't liking it. I will say that it could have been because I read it after, I read it directly after finishing, like the day after finishing A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas, and that was my favorite book of last year, so I think I was still in like, not in the headspace of that world, but wanting to read more of that world and not jump into a new one. The Night Circus is one that I do think I want to try to reread, like to reread and continue on, because I did like what I read at that point, but I just didn't want to continue. I was trudging through it like, do I have to finish this? But I do plan on rereading the part that I read and then continuing on in the future, but just not right now. The next is Cursed by Thomas Wheeler, and this I DNF'd at like, after like maybe 50, 60 pages. This is essentially like a King Arthur retelling where instead of Arthur getting the sword, a fae named Nimue gets it, and I watched the TV show, like the Netflix TV show of this. I didn't like the show, so I do not plan on picking up the book again. I just was sitting there reading going, I don't care what happens. I don't want to know what happens. I want to pick a different book up. Like, that's literally how it went. Now, this next book, I debated putting in this video because I just finished rereading it. I'll just hold up the book. Illuminae by Amie, Kauffman, and Kristoff. This, when I first read it, I made it up to page 66 and then DNF'd it. But then recently I acquired both the physical book and the audiobook from my library, and I loved it so much more to the point that I gave it a 5-star. I will say I DNF'd the ebook version. So the physical version and the audio version is what gave it a like 5-star rating for me. I literally am going to be filming an entire review after this, which would already be up on my channel, so I'll leave that linked in the iCard and the description. But this one, I just like, it was because if you go to my review, you'll see my full thoughts, but I think just the physical version was better because the physical and the ebook version is what made it 5-star. But the ebook is what I DNF'd. The next book is Spellslinger by Sebastian de Castell, and this we follow Kellen, who, we're in this like world that has magic, but if you don't manifest your magic by a certain age, I think the age is like 16 or 17, then you're kind of almost like an outcast, and Kellen hasn't received his magic yet, and it's him trying to find his magic. But I just didn't like, I don't even know what I didn't like, I just DNF'd this. This is one I really, 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 really wanted to love because of how much Jade from JD Ray Reads loves this. Like, it's one of her favorite series. The author's one of her favorite authors, but I just couldn't get into the story. And even though I made it through, I think, like 40% of the book, which is like 100 and some pages, I just couldn't get into it. And this is one that I do plan on maybe trying to pick up in the future, like maybe see if my library has it and read a physical book. That might help because I read the ebook version. but I'm not sure. Or I'll try the ebook version again when I'm in the right headspace for it. I don't know. So those were all the books from 2020. Now moving on to 2021, so the first book I DNF'd in 2021 was The House of Bastion by Kolarich, and this is a political high fantasy book where essentially, like, we're either after a war or trying to avoid a war, and these characters have to travel to this one city for, like, a peace treaty, I think. And this I DNF'd. I made it to 50%, but I don't remember anything that I read. This was an arc that I DNF'd. Like, this was my first ever arc that I DNF'd, and I feel so bad. But this is one that I do feel like I would like. I just wasn't in, like, a political fantasy mood then. And this is one that I'm debating picking up soon here because I did like what I read. It was just too political, too many point of views at that point. So, like, I think that's why I DNF'd it. The next book was The Once and Future Witches by Alix and Harrow, and this is a historical fiction that we follow three sisters who join this women's movement, and it turns into a witches movement because they are witches. And this, I just didn't like it. I literally was reading, I made it halfway through. This was the Avengers Initiative Reading Challenge group book for April, and I'm not kidding you, if I would have finished this book, I would have jumped into a giant slump, and I'm so glad I DNF'd it and picked up a book I was really excited to read, because May was my best reading month, but if I would have finished this, I have a feeling that I would have gone into a reading slump. This is one that I don't think I plan on picking up in the future, just because I didn't really like what I read, and I didn't really feel the need to. I don't feel the need to know how it finishes because, well, I don't really care. I don't care about the characters. I don't care about anything, really. The next book is Sightwitch by Susan Denmard, which is the 2.5 novella in the Witchland series. And this, again, I picked up on Jade from Jade Reads Accord because she was doing, is doing a entire readathon dedicated to the Witchlands books. And I read book 1, 2, and then I DNF'd 2.5, thus DNFing the series. And this essentially, we're in a world that has like these different kind of witches. Like there's wind witches, blood witches, truth witches. What else? And it's essentially like a political fantasy where we have the main character of Safi is a truth witch, which are very rare, and then when she gets picked up her scent by a blood witch, which is somebody that can track somebody via their blood, she has to run with her best friend Isolde. And my favorite was the first one. Then we got to book 2, and I was like, I'm not liking this. And I said to myself, if I feel like I do not like Sightwitch or I DNF it, I'm DNF the entire series. This is simply a series I've DNF'd. But Sightwitch is a novella where we follow, it's kind of almost like a prequel novella type thing about one of the characters, and I was literally sitting there just like, reading it. I was just like, how many more pages? Where's the plot? What are we doing? And this is one I'm so glad that I borrowed from my library, because I would have been disappointed if I would have bought the ebook and then not liked it, like most of these other ones. The next one is Voice of Darkness by A.G. Hauser, and this I made 10% in. This is I think it's a YA borderline new adult fantasy, and we follow 3 point of views, one of which is a person who has magic, one is a person that discovers she has magic, and then I cannot remember the third point of view, and essentially the queen has outlawed magic, and the person that discovered that she finds out magic is sent to the palace, and that's as far as I got. I just didn't really vibe with the characters. Yes, I only made it like 10% in. This is one that I will 100% reread because I believe it has dragons, and I have this thing where anytime I hear the word dragons, I'm like, I'm sorry, what? That's like one buzzword that I'm like, anytime it's mentioned, if any other element in the book sounds good, I will read it. The final book I've DNF'd is This Is How You Lose a Time War by Amal, Mohtar, and Max Gladstone, and this is a adult science fiction where we follow 2 people on the opposite ends of wars who send messages to each other, and it's time travel. And I DNF'd this I don't even know how many pages in, maybe like 30 pages in. I just didn't like it. I was like falling asleep reading it. I was like, I do not understand the plot. I do not understand these characters, because it's told mostly through letters, although there's other points, but I was just like, it was jumping around way too much, so I just DNF'd it. If any of these books you DNF'd are your that I DNF'd are your favorite, I am sorry. These are my personal opinions. I should also add that this is how you lose a time war. I'm never planning on trying to reread. I do not see the point of me trying to reread it, because it is not the type of story for me. But I hope you enjoyed this really quick video. I just feel like nobody really talks about the books they DNF, besides in like wrap-ups. But, like, you get what I'm saying? Oh my gosh, I'm just like a wild mess right now. But I really hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.